Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I want to welcome you to the Housing Expo, and we're very happy that you guys could make it today. We would like to give a warm welcome to our speakers, Patrick Martin and Diego Cancel.
There you go. Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. So good afternoon, everyone. As Christine mentioned, my name is Patrick Martin. I'm the Water Use Efficiency Manager at Miami-Dade Water and Sewer Department. And I'm here to talk about basically water resources in Miami-Dade County. And as homeowners or potential homeowners, I think it's really helpful for people to be knowledgeable about water resources here in the county and how that affects your drinking water, which you obviously will be using in your home or new home. And what's really important is about conserving it. And there are a lot of things you can do as a homeowner very simply that can conserve water. Has a dual benefit of preserving the resource for future generations and for also reducing your water bill, which can be, if not watched, it can be a significant source, a significant expense in the household. So just to kind of give you a high-level view, here we are in Miami-Dade County. This map shows where the county is located in the state of Florida. So it's actually a very big state geographically. It's actually the third largest state in the county, but it's also the most populated state in the state of Florida. It's actually the 7th most populated county in the country. Next slide. Right, and so Miami-Dade Water and Sewer Department is tasked with providing high quality water and wastewater services to the residents of the county. So I'm just going to give a quick summary of who we are and what we do. So we are the largest utility in the southeastern United States, the 9th largest in the country. We serve approximately 2.3 million people a day, meaning we provide water to that many people, plus wastewater services, which is basically when you turn your tap on and you get high quality drinking water coming out of it. And when you flush your toilet or take a shower, that wastewater is disposed of and taken care of properly. So that's at a high level, that's the two services that we provide, which are really important for quality of life. We have about 2,600 people in the department. We're one of 25 departments in the county, and we have an operating budget of about $800 million. So we are a large department. Next slide. So what is it about Florida that is really unique? So we are actually a very water-rich state, unlike a lot of part of the country that has a tendency to be more water poor. We're actually water-rich. We have many lakes, we have many rivers and streams, we have springs, and we receive over 50 inches of rain per year. Next slide. But the issue in Florida is that, so we have basically two climates. We have a very wet season and a very dry season. So right now we're entering into the dry season, which runs from November to about May, and then the wet season kicks in June to October. And we get most of that 50 inches during those 6-month period. But problem is that when it's very wet, that's great. It replenishes our water supply, but it can get very dry. And the dry time is when we see a large increase in population. So in addition to it not raining very much, we also have more people here that come as snowbirds or as tourists during the wintertime that provide that they expect that high level of water and wastewater service. So it's a challenge for the department for that. And so what happens is that because Florida is a very flat state, during the dry season, we don't have a place to store that water, that significant amount of rainfall we receive in the summertime. It has a tendency to run off, and as flood control, we actually have it channelized here in the state, and especially in the southern part of the state, where it's been man-made and channelized to remove that water off the ground, so people's homes don't flood. Next slide. So with that, we're not. We don't have that benefit of having a mountainous terrain where we can build reservoirs to store the water. We have to actually move that water off the land pretty quick. And that previous slide showed you a pic of a suburban sprawl here in Miami-Dade County or South Florida, where that's very flat, and you see a lot of canals that have been dug to keep that water off the ground. This slide, actually the next slide, Christine, it shows basically a summary of our water resources in the county. You can see on the ground surface, you see the cities along the coast, suburbs to the west of the city, and then to the west of the suburbs are the Everglades. And right beneath our feet is the Biscayne Aquifer, which is the primary source of drinking water for the county. We're actually right up against the coast, so we have that saltwater intrusion issue, that there's this constant battle between the freshwater aquifer and the ocean, the saltwater, where the saltwater wants to move into the freshwater. So we have to be very careful about our wells and our well fields and the amount of water we take out of those wells to keep them freshwater and prevent saltwater from moving in. And then you can see there's a confining layer between the Biscayne aquifer and the lower aquifer is the Floridan aquifer. And that actually is much deeper. As you can see, the Biscayne we're blessed with a freshwater supply, so it's very easy to access and to treat the water. The Floridan, not so much, because it's more brackish water, so there's a lot of salt that would have to be removed before people can drink it. So we actually prefer tapping into the Biscayne aquifer versus the Floridan, because it's a closer, less expensive, more plentiful resource than the Floridan, which is more salty and much lower down. Next slide. And so I'm going to focus on the Biscayne aquifer because that's our primary source of water. So actually, you can see this big piece of rock in the picture. That's actually the aquifer. It's made up of this permeable limestone. So the water really flows very easily through that limestone, very close to the surface. So that water in that limestone can interact directly with surface water, which is good and bad. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, Biscayne aquifer is a coastal aquifer, which is pretty unique in the world, in the sense that it's right up against the ocean. And the aquifer is actually managed by the state of Florida. It needs to be managed because we have many people living here in South Florida. So that resource needs to be managed, which the state does. And we apply, Miami-Dade County actually applies for a permit for a portion of that water to use to fulfill the needs of the residents of the county. Next slide. And so what happens when we overuse that resource, which actually can happen? So the Biscayne aquifer is a finite supply of water. It does get replenished by rainfall, which is great. But like I mentioned, rainfall doesn't always come at the time you need it or all during the course of the year. We get a very short wet season and then a very long dry season. And so if you have overuse of the aquifer, you can really have significant effect on wetlands and any lakes there are. The lakes would be lowered. We don't have springs here in Miami-Dade County, but up north there are springs, and those spring flows can be reduced. You can have sinkholes in other parts of the state. We experience that. Of course, here in Miami, we can experience saltwater intrusion, and that can threaten our drinking water supply. If we have a period of time where there's a lack of rainfall, the aquifer would not be recharged and we would experience a water shortage. So these are all consequences of this rainfall driven resource that we have. Next slide. And so we really want to focus on preserving the water as much as we can. And that's why water conservation is actually really important here. There's also other issues facing the Biscayne aquifer. Like I mentioned, because the aquifer is close to the surface, it interacts with surface water. So if that surface water is polluted, it can pollute the aquifer. We can overpump wells, which is not good because then salt water will want to move right in there. And that's what that saltwater intrusion comment is there. So these are things that the department has to contend with and make sure that we deal with properly to ensure a sufficient supply of water. Next slide. So, here at our department, one thing about us is we're kind of out of sight, out of mind. Most of our infrastructure to provide water and wastewater services to the people of the county are all underground. So you don't see these pipes that move all over the county. Think about how big Miami-Dade County is, close to 3 million people. There's a lot of water distribution pipes. And so there's a constant challenge for us to keep that equipment, that infrastructure in good shape. It's constantly being challenged by heavy, intense rainfall, saltwater intrusion, population increases, of course, the age of the infrastructure, and all those things we have to deal with and contend with to make sure the system is running properly to provide sufficient water and wastewater services. Next slide. And so one of the things that's really important for people to understand, in addition to the limited resource that we have, is that there is this connection between water and energy. And as homeowners or potential homeowners, I think that's really important for people to understand, is that when you go into a room and you turn on the light, not only are you using electricity, but you're also using water that's needed to produce that electricity, and vice versa. When you turn on your tap, or if you are washing your clothes or taking a shower, you're using water, but you're also using electricity to actually get that water to the point where it's clean enough for you to use, and then of course you need to move it out when you don't need it through wastewater. Next slide. So it's really important to keep that nexus, the relationship that those two have in mind, that's really important going forward. And in light of climate change and carbon footprint, and the less water you use and electricity you use, you actually reduce your carbon footprint, which is a good thing for the planet. And so this, just to give you an idea of bringing it down more at a granular level of how you as an individual, a resident or homeowner, can control your water use. This pie chart gives you an example of where water is used in the home. And if you look at this pie chart, the majority of water in your home is actually used in your toilet. Most people don't realize that. But if you think about it, if you're home all day, as a lot of people are with the pandemic, think about how many times you flush the toilet, maybe up to 4 to 5 times a day, depending on how many people are in your home. If there's 3 or 4 people, that's the toilet's being flushed upwards of 20 times per day. That's 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. So that's a lot of water being used just for the toilet. Of course, you have other uses like clothes washer and a shower and faucets. And then one thing to keep in mind is actually leaks are a significant portion of water use. So it's really important to fix leaks in your home. But I'm going to focus on the 3 biggest uses of water, which is the toilet, the shower, and the faucet. Next slide. And so those fixtures are located in bathrooms. So most of your water use in your home is in the bathroom. And so Miami-Dade County has created this incentive program. We created a water conservation program that said, hey, we're going to really go after the low-hanging fruit. Where is it that we can get the most bang for our buck to try to encourage people to save water? And so just by changing out your fixtures, if you have an older home, you'll actually reduce your water use just by changing the fixtures and not even changing your habits. Habits are a different story. That's more difficult, believe it or not, because habits are really ingrained, and it's very difficult for people to make those changes. But right off the top, if you change those fixtures, the toilets and faucets and the shower heads, you'll just save water by just replacing those fixtures. And so the county will give you money back for replacing your old water wasting fixtures with WaterSense certified high efficiency fixtures. And this slide gives you the idea of how much money we'll give you back for doing that. And this really is focused on homes and properties built before 1996 in the county, because homes that were built after 1996, for the most part, have these efficient fixtures installed since they were a federal mandate. Next slide. And so that's really focusing more on indoor use, but also, of course, outdoor use is a significant water use in a home also. In a single family home, for an example, if there's an irrigation system, that can use 50% or more of a total household's water use can be used outdoor in irrigation. If you have an in-ground irrigation system in your home, usually it's on a timer, and that timer goes off automatically, regardless of if it's been raining or not. So the county actually offers this great program where we'll come out for free and evaluate your in-ground irrigation system to see how it's working. Is it efficient? Is it not efficient? Can you change things out? Can you retrofit fixtures to make it more efficient? Put in, these better efficient pop-up heads? Can you replace the timer with a weather-based controller? And so we have these great rebates that we provide people up to $500 a year to make that system more efficient. And it's geared towards both single-family properties and large properties. And large property can be a hotel, can be HOAs, any kind of commercial property, multifamily buildings, condominiums. So it's a great program. Visit our conservation website to learn more. Next slide. And so what can you do as an individual? I mentioned to you about that pie chart, how it's so interesting, how most of the water is used in a home is in a bathroom. And so there's some very simple things you can do to actually reduce your use. In addition to changing out your fixtures, like I mentioned, and the county gives you an incentive to do so, now it's changing your habits, right? But that's hard, right? So think about what you're doing though. When you're in the bathroom and you're brushing your teeth, people have a tendency to leave the faucet running. There's no need for that at all. That water's not being used. It's just going down the drain. So turn off the faucet when you're brushing your teeth. Same thing when you're taking a shower. People have a tendency to stay in the shower for long periods of time, let the water run all over them. It feels great, but you're using a lot of water. So try to reduce that water use. When you're showering up and you're lathering up, turn that water off while you're doing so. And then when you finish lathering up, turn the water back on and rinse off. And so you can actually reduce the time of water that's being used in your shower, maybe to like 5 or 10 minutes versus 20 or 30 minutes. You definitely want to fix any drips or leaks that you see in your home. Like I said, those leaks are dripping, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So a lot of water is wasted that way. So please fix those leaks as much as you can. And outdoors, we have a great rain barrel program here in Miami-Dade County. So why don't you catch some of that water coming off your roof and use that water to water your plants in your yard. Definitely, you should think about if you have a house with turf, dig up that turf and replace it with Florida-friendly plants and trees. Try to use more plants and trees versus turf grass. Turf grass requires a lot of water. Florida-friendly plants and trees don't, and they actually are really good for the environment, and they attract butterflies, and they can beautify your yard. If you're cleaning your driveway, why don't you use a broom instead of a hose to wash it down? Use a bucket to wash your car instead of using a hose. But if you're going to use a hose, make sure it has an automatic shut-off. So those are really some simple things that people can adopt to change their habits, and they can reduce their water use significantly. Next slide. So it's really important that I focused on water conservation, and I kind of summarized simple things that you can do on how you can reduce your use, and provided you education on where your water comes from and why it's important to conserve it. But another thing I wanted to promote is Miami-Dade Water. So like I mentioned, the beauty of this society that we live in, the country we live in, is that we can turn on our faucet and fresh water comes out. We're really blessed. And people don't realize that that's actually an excellent source of drinking water. Unfortunately, we've been sold the bill of goods that buying bottled water is actually better than tap water. And so I want to educate you to let you know that that's actually not true. So next slide. I'd like you to start focusing on drinking tap water versus buying bottled water. And next slide. And it's really important because, in this day and age, we're really focusing so much on sustainability and resilience. And one of the things that people don't realize is that buying a plastic bottle of water is actually really bad for the environment. In addition to not really being sure where the water is coming from that's in the bottle, though the company that manufactures it will tell you it's super high quality pure water, you actually have this plastic bottle that you have to contend with. So if you look at the details of it, a plastic bottle of water, oil is used to produce that plastic. So right there, you're burning fossil fuels to make that plastic bottle, which contributes to global warming. And then after you drink your water from that bottle, what do you do with the bottle? Well, you just toss it out, right? And so unfortunately, that's really bad for the environment because a large portion of our plastic bottles actually don't get recycled. If there's not a market for it, it won't be sold. And oftentimes it'll go into a landfill, or it'll end up on the street, and it'll end up in Biscayne Bay or in the ocean. And we've seen plenty of that. I'm sure if anybody goes to the beach or goes for walks on the street, you'll see that we see these plastic bottles all over the place. A significant amount of energy is actually used to produce bottled water versus water that comes out of your tap. And in addition to that, there's a good portion of bottled water that actually is, a good portion of tap water is used for bottled water. If you just do any kind of Google search on Dasani water that's made by, I think that's made by Coca-Cola, or Aquafina, for example, that's made by Pepsi, there's a good chance that some of that water is actually coming from city water that they're just recycling through another filter and putting it into the bottle. So if you move away from bottled water and start drinking tap water, you'll do really good things for the environment, and you'll actually save yourself money because you wouldn't be spending money to buy that bottled water. And so I just want to reiterate that Miami-Dade water you can drink it with confidence. It's really high quality. We test that tap water thousands of times a year to make sure it meets all state and federal requirements. It's really good for the environment to move away from bottled water and drink tap water. And like I mentioned before, you can save money by doing so. So I think Christine maybe Diego's taking over from this point.
All right, that sounds good. Thank you so much for discussing that with us. It was definitely useful for me to hear. I had no idea that tap water was actually good for you, and it was a myth. And I apologize for those technical errors. All right, so let's go ahead and introduce Diego.
Thank you, Patrick. My name is Diego Cancel, and I'm the program coordinator for Dream and Green. Dream and Green is a nonprofit here in South Florida with a mission to empower individuals, especially youth, to lead in the response to climate change and other environmental issues facing South Florida. Patrick has talked about Miami-Dade County water in detail, so now let's talk a little bit about the water energy nexus, a little bit about the importance of water itself, and then energy and tips and tricks that we can all do at home to conserve energy, and water as well. So let's talk about the water energy nexus. You need energy to create clean water, the water that we use at home every single day. And you need water to be able to produce energy that we use at home as well and at work and all over. So what are some examples? On the left, you guys can see how do we use water for energy? Electricity generation requires a lot of water because you need to keep power plants cool. Oil and gas also require a lot of water to be able to get those oils and gases out of the planet. And a lot of renewable energies also use water. How do we use energy for water? On the right side, you can see even pumping. If you think about it physically, if you were pumping the water yourself, you're using your own energy to get that water out. So now just imagine how much energy Miami-Dade County is using to get that water to all of us. Water treatment plants also use a lot of energy to be able to get us the water that we use at home. Heating and cooling systems at home as well use a lot of energy, and the delivery of our water throughout our entire county. So question for you guys, how many gallons of water per person per day do you think that we use? Gallons of water per person per day on average. All right, so the answer actually is, on average, about 100 gallons of water per person per day. That's a lot of water. It's the water that you use to brush your teeth, to cook, to clean, to shower, and other things. Which highlights the importance of water. About 71% of our planet is actually covered in water, but a lot of that water isn't accessible to us. Only about 2.5% of all that water is actually fresh water. A lot of that is captured in glaciers and locations that are really hard for us humans to access. So only about 1%, it's actually a little bit less than 1% of water available on this planet is readily available to us, which highlights how important water can be and how much of an important resource it can be and how much more of important it's going to become as time moves forward. So you can see first by the colors, you can see the green color that Florida has is the average that we spoke about 100 gallons of water per person per day. But you can see some states have up to 200 gallons of water per person per day. So they're going to be needing a lot of water. And the percentages that you see on each state is the projected population change by 2030. So here in Florida, you can see we're projected to go up by 79%. Imagine that. And there's a lot of other states that are going up as well. So here in Florida, specifically in Miami-Dade County, we're projected to go up to about 3.2 million from the about 2.7, 2.8 million people that we have now. And I know that all of us are used to driving here in Florida already. So just imagine even more cars on the road every single day. So now let's talk a little bit more about energy. Don't worry about this graphic. We're going to come back to it with a few tips and tricks for all of us. At home, what do you guys think uses the most energy? What uses the most energy at home? Do you guys think it's your TV, the microwave, the computer that we're all using right now, the AC units, the refrigerator? So the answer is our heating and cooling. So the heating and cooling, we're using it often here in Florida, right? I'm assuming a lot of us aren't using the heating. I hope not, at least. But you can see that all the other things add up, from the water heater to the lighting to the washer dryer to the refrigerator, electric oven, and more. And we're going to talk about some tips and tricks for some of these so that we can all conserve energy, which also conserves water for us and saves us money. So let's tackle the first one. Like Patrick likes to say, the low-hanging fruit, the easy one to get to, your AC. So I know we all hear about this all the time. A lot of us don't listen. Clean your filters, change your filters. I know changing your filters can be expensive. So one thing I like to recommend is just clean your filter as often as you can. Once a month, just clean it out. That way it'll last longer, keep your house cleaner, and also won't cause the AC to have to work through all that dust and dirt, which would cost more electricity. Use a fan when possible, either a fan with your windows closed inside the house, that way you don't have to use the AC as much, or open a window and use a window fan if that's possible, especially when the temperatures start dropping here in the winter time. That'll reduce your power bill significantly. And this is a harder one, but keep your temperature at 78. That's the ideal temperature. But I know that's a high temperature. So what I try to tell people in every aspect of what I'm going to try to teach you is try your best. If you're used to 70 degrees at your house, maybe try 72 for a week. And if you can get used to that, maybe try 73, 74. And that way you'll get used to it slowly. And also you're going to be saving energy and money for yourself. And if you have the possibility, program your AC so that way when you're not home, it lets the house maybe get a little bit warmer, but then either when you get back home or a few minutes before you get home, it can turn back down so that way your house can be a little bit cooler when you get home. So what are some more tips and tricks that we can do throughout the entire house? So an easy one, LED lights. They might be a little bit expensive initially, but they last longer. They produce less heat inside your home, so your home will be cooler. And they produce more light overall. So it's a good investment in the long term. Power strips is another good one. Try to connect all your electronics to one power strip. That way, when you're done using them, you just turn off the power strip and you're good to go. Some electronics actually use electricity even after you've turned them off. And a lot of chargers actually still use electricity if you leave them plugged in. Moderate your refrigerator temperature as well as your water heater temperature. The refrigerator is often set too cold and you don't necessarily need it to be that cold. You can turn that up a little bit and save a little bit of energy. And your water heater, same thing. Sometimes water heaters can be set up to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. You can easily turn that down to about 120 and you'll still get all the hot water that you need. This is a harder one, but energy efficient appliances, they last long. They use a lot less energy, so it's a good investment in the long run, but I know that's a hard one. Low flow shower heads and faucets, that's a good one. Patrick talked about incentives that Miami-Dade County provides, so take advantage of those to use less water, which also uses less energy if you think about it, if you're using less hot water. And then one of the hardest ones, the 5-minute showers. So there's a few suggestions on this one. As I said earlier, I know if you're used to 25, 30 minutes, what I say is try your best. Try your best to lower that number to, about 10 minutes, 5 minutes if you can get to it, but try to pick a few songs, maybe pick a few of your favorite songs and try to be out of the shower before those songs are done. And then maybe if you're used to those, delete one of the songs, and that way you get used to showering shorter. Or one quick tip is after you're wet, turn off the shower, lather up, and then turn it back on. That way you're using a little bit of water. That one's a little bit harder, but as I said, just try to reduce your shower times. And then another one for homeowners is a really good one. Native plants and trees. Not that any other tip hasn't been good. They're all good. But native plants and trees, they can have a lot of benefits. So increased property value is one of the most enticing ones. On the left, you can see a house without any trees. It has been shown that the one on the right with more trees and a little garden and plants and such will have a higher property value. So that's a really good reason to have trees amongst a lot of others. It can also help reduce the heat inside your home. So if you plant trees in the right places near your home, it can actually reduce how much sunlight is coming in, which would then reduce how much AC you need to be blasting all day. And it would save you money and your house would be cooler. And then the last one is landscaping itself. So plants and trees take a lot of work. If you're planting native trees and plants, they require less work, less water, and then less time for you to be out there spending. So when you're planting, consider planting native plants and trees because they will save water, save energy, save you money, save you time. And lastly, final thoughts. Lastly, I just want to say everything that we've talked about today is extremely important. Everything relates to our planet. Everything that you can do to reduce your energy usage, to reduce your water usage, will in the long run help our planet. So consider doing some of these tips and tricks. Please teach these to your friends and family. And thank you so much for your time. The next slide, I'll show you guys our contact information. There's Patrick's contact information and there's mine on the right. If you guys have absolutely any questions at any time, please feel free to contact us. Thank you.